Let's get these. We are good to go. One of those weird things that Zoom does. As soon as you pop on and you're going live, you get all the things that block you from seeing. It's a pain in the butt, but you know what? You deal with what you're dealing with. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday Mindset. Carol Sue, aka Naughty Boss, live with
TwoSistas. Hey, good morning, everyone. Excuse me, it's Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. And of course, today is Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. I always have a hard word saying
that's a hard word to say.
It doesn't come out easy. I don't know why. No. But you know, and of course it's frosty cold here in the Northeast. And as I was trying to explain to Gary this morning, he says, oh, it's not that bad out. It's about 48 degrees, I believe. And I said, well, that's great. But for a person like me who's always cold, that's cold.
Yeah, I would say 48 is tad chilly. I mean, we were actually talking about the the different climate changes down south where, your temperature changes and who feels, that like 72 is chilly. And believe it or not, more and more people, the more their blood and their body acclimates to the climate that they're in, especially down south. Some people really even find like low 70s, upper 60s chilly. And I crack up because to me, it's refreshing. And a lot of people say, well, it's refreshing because of, the heatness or the humidity that, Florida has. And I actually pinpointed only 2 times during the heat of the summer. And this was probably one of the more warmer summers, especially from the information I'm getting from the natives, that there was only 2 days that I could say that I was slightly uncomfortable. So, my body is not, I guess my blood's not thinning out as quick as, other people that, transplant from, say, up north versus going to down south. I didn't notice a few times going back up north where I would have felt a little bit chillier than I normally would feel. But the role reversal, I love the upper 70s just as much as I like the 90s. So to me, the temperature's got something to do with it. When you reach that point, unless you turn your pool heater on, we do have a pool heater on, you're not necessarily going to go in the water. Like sometimes I still will just go on the float, and the water might be a tad chilly, but I just like floating around or even just lying out there. So because of the bright sunshine, where we don't have that kind of cold temperatures and the kind of what I call the doom and gloom look, as long as it's sunny out. And then I tell people, if you're in an area that is kind of gray out, turn some lights on, put some happy music on.
And that's of course what I do when I'm working out down here, and having the music on, and I start out, of course, wearing my sweatshirt, and after the first round I have to, of course, take my sweatshirt off. But listening to that music gets your body going, and all the good endorphins start to fly in, so that's always a good thing. So what is in store on this Columbus Day? I was trying to look up some history stuff, because I'm a geek when it comes to that.
I love looking up that stuff, and it was nice. I woke up to someone actually posting a picture of Christopher Columbus, and obviously in the last woke few years, he's getting such a bad rap.
Yes. And it goes to, different things, of course, that have popped up this weekend in the news cycles, and the perception, which to me, we all know that news channels have their own agenda. We get that. But how each news station really focuses on their opinion. And I always go back to, just tell me the news, don't tell me your opinion. If I ask for it, well, then I need to be open to listen to it.
Exactly. Well, we know he was an Italian explorer, and he completed 4 of the Spanish voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, which was actually sponsored by the Catholic monarchs of Spain. So I'm thinking, what about that is so deplorable? Was it because he was Italian? Was it because he, was kind of doing the works of the Spanish Catholic monarch? I don't know. I think they pick out pieces of maybe what he represented and kind of flip it into a broader base of trying to do something sort of racist is what I'm gathering. But my point being, with when you start picking and choosing, especially when history is always up for debate. That's why it's history. That's why it's in the books. That's why you won't forget about it, because there will always become debates about, what exploration of this, who really did discover that, who did he represent, who did she align herself with. And I think what that tells me is, in any given situation, even just normal everyday people, you can really decide and pick apart any piece of what they represent or what they're passionate about or who they lock arms with, and twist it to fit any kind of narrative if you choose to. That's the fact. You can do that because no one is perfect in the world. People have humanity is such a way that we're flawed. So does everyone make the perfect judgment at any particular time? No. Decision making, do we always make the correct decisions on any given day? No. And could those be twisted into a narrative or twisted in such that it would inflect into another narrative of something that it really has nothing to do with? And I think part of this new wokeness over the last years between different groups, ideologies, media outlets, certain human groups, there's a purpose of why they're doing that. And usually when you find all these different groups going after that type of narrative and it's negative, to me, instead of intellectually looking at, especially when you're speaking of somebody like Christopher Columbus in history, to have an intelligent conversation of pros and cons, and it doesn't totally depict him as a person. It may have really depicted the times that he was in, as any kind of piece of history is. It's really a reflection of that period. So you can't base all this other nonsense as if it's so. Because number one, we weren't there. There is no one, to my knowledge, when you're talking about history, unless it's recent history, that has a personal connection with it, meaning they were present. So I don't know. I just think it's just a new method. And the bottom line is, if you're using it for resolve or to solve a current problem on how to do something better, I'm all for that. But I'm not all for this constant bashing, because the problem with that is literally everyone that's walking on this earth today, we can bash. We're not perfect. We all have different things that, we could bash about. But does that put resolve in humanity? Does that put the best foot forward to say, hey, I learned something, so now I don't want to do it that way anymore? And I think if you're always part of the problem and you're not really showing some value in the solution, I just tune it out.
Yeah, that's what I have to. I mean, I can only take it to a certain, listen to a certain degree, and then I say, okay, that's it. I'm turning it off. I'm done. Because it's a waste of time for me to feel that anxiety when I hear all this stuff going on. It's a waste of energy. And, my feeling is that, especially with a lot of famous people out there, celebrities or whatever, that don't like this country. If you don't like this country, get the F out.
And how many times do people say that? I mean, that's a pretty common response, but yet they don't leave.
I know. Like, I don't get it. but that could lead into another conversation, of course, but I'm not going to go there.
Well, he's known for discovering new worlds. He
Right.
was on Santa Maria. Let's celebrate that. I mean, I don't know. I think people put too much emphasis on negative pieces. There's always going to be negative pieces to history. As long as we, hopefully have learned something to change how we go about doing something today, that's the point of history. But the saying, history does repeat itself. It will repeat itself. And the reason why it repeats itself in a bad light is because humanity's not changing. It's that simple. People have to be kinder. People have to learn from it, embrace it, validate that it happened, but just don't dwell on it to now come up with a new narrative of negativity towards either a social piece and or, different cultures. I mean, I don't know. It's bizarro to me.
Yeah, it is, and just think about, we can't change history. We reflect on history.
Yep.
And yes, you can certainly mold it to whatever discussion you're having. But the fact is, you can't change history. We can only move forward in such a way as to learn from the past, hopefully make the correct changes if changes need to be made, which a lot of times, you have to, right?
Right.
We're not debating that, but what we're saying is, let's learn from our past to hopefully guide us, into the future.
Right. And, I think a lot of the controversy is, was he the first explorer? Was he not? Because they named some other people. At the end of the day, you give the explorers credit as credit is due. If there is a piece of history, I don't think, there's certain pieces of history that you'll never know 100% of accuracy, depending on what the situation was. That's how I look at that. Was he the first Italian that came over and kind of paved the way for Italian Americans? Absolutely. So, we're talking about when did this occur, like the 1500s, whatever it was.
1492, I believe it was.
1492. So, I mean, I don't know anybody that was around then that's still here, number one. I mean, you could even look, let's face it, you could look at the Bible, which a lot of people do that. They criticize the Bible, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, people, you weren't here when it was written. You weren't one of the apostles. I don't know. I just think people put too much, and to put that kind of, if they're not giving anything that's positive, that's really going to add value, because it's always up for debate, and I'm all about that. And saying, hey, you know what? Maybe it did happen. Like, okay, let's be open to that. But if it's a constant pounce, and then it's now let's go after a certain narrative with a certain color of someone's skin, or whatever. You know what? There's a lot of other things that are happening in the world today that we're part of that really require people to volunteer, to take part, to help others, to give of themselves. Why don't you spend your energy on that versus this?
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of what happened back in 1492, we weren't around.
Yeah, we were, excuse me, we weren't around. And if we're going to only go back to history to tear it apart and just put it into the present day in such a way where it does nobody no good, I'm not saying we can't have those discussions, but I think we need to look at it those discussions more objectively and like, okay, well, this happened. How does that apply to what's happening today? What can we change about it? What is a solution
right
that we can work on together? And I think the solution part gets lost in all the mumbo jumbo.
And there's just too much mumbo jumbo going on. I mean, in all avenues. And those are the kinds of things that will inevitably and no doubt impact your mindset. So you have to know, when you're starting out your week, what is in my control and what is not in my control. My daily activities, what I put out into the universe, how I treat others, having conversations with people that, you accomplish something without, disregarding the other person or tearing the other person down, have that conversation. And then at the end of the day, you have to know for your mindset, you're only in control of what you do and what you put out. You can't control what other people say. You can't control what other people, the energy they put out. But if it's impacting your mindset in such a way that's adding stress, negativity, you feel like I'm in this roller coaster of stress, remove yourself from it.
Right.
And be a part of, finding something that you're passionate about, that helps you feel good about yourself, that also gives you joy, or that you feel accomplished and work on those goals. Those are the positive things that are going to keep you mindful of what kind of energy do you want to put out there? Do you want to always be negative and not part of a solution or a change? There's a couple sayings about, that negativity attracts more negativity, or you attract what you think, because we already know, we talk about this all the time, our thoughts are electric currents. So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts or narratives that are not adding pleasure to your brain cells, guess what? You're going to attract that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So positivity inspires, and you can still have a very inclusive and back and forth type of discussion, and keep it calm, keep it light. Each of you express your opinions and hopefully learn from each other and take something away from that, like, okay, that's not something that I ever thought of. And we lost we lost so much of that 2-3 years ago when the world went a little haywire, and we need to regain that back.
Yeah, it really goes back to conversation. And I think part of what is going on in our world today is people rely too much on social media, Googling this, Googling that, collecting information for what purpose? If it's not something that's going to add value or educate others, and even though you may have that mindset that you want to educate others, the bottom line is people are going to absorb what they want to absorb, and they're going to believe their belief systems, period. Mm-hmm. People are too influenced nowadays, and they're, mindless finds. And that's what I call them, mindless finds, when you are continually watching, either scrolling for information on your phone, or you're watching media outlets, or, those kinds of shows that make you a spineless, mindless person. Because think about that. Back in the day when you wanted to get information, remember the good old encyclopedia? People don't even use that anymore. I don't even think that. I'm not even sure. I do believe they still sell them, but whatever. People don't reach for a book. People don't know how to even research beyond the internet. So the goodness of the internet is it's a great way of collecting information. But if you're only absorbed with stats and this is going wrong and that's going wrong, I got to collect this information and that information, where, unless you're going to use that information for something useful, like you're preparing a report, what is the point? Because it doesn't really add any value. It kind of just clutters your brain, number one. And I think we're becoming a spineless, mindless society because we just sit. And the only things that we're truly using is our fingers in the scroll mode when it comes to, say, a laptop, iPad, your cell phone, or your fingers are mindlessly using a remote to draw you to a news outlet. And then what do? You sit there and you're staring at the screen and listening to what we now know is more opinion type news versus adding value and reporting what's actually going on. I don't want to live like that.
Well, yeah, and I think of, and I just have to mention this because it made me think of this, think of obviously when Walter Cronkite, and then of course Barbara Walters, for instance, when Barbara Walters started The View, can't stand that show anymore, just saying. But when she started The View, it was fact-based. And now it is what it is. I'm not going to give them the clutter in my mind to, talk about them. But if you look at these different shows with the with the knowledge that, everybody is sharing their opinion, you have to pick and choose. Now, I saw one of the CNN guys, gosh, I forget his name. And I just kind of shook my head, click, just move from it. Like it just wasn't worth my time. And I try to be, to the extent that I can personally handle it, be objective to listening to other things, because that's when we learn. But in this particular case, I'm going to be straight up and say, I listened to him for a few minutes and then I just had to move on, because I was like, what is he talking about?
Right. And it just doesn't, and like, if you're not feeling good about it, it's not adding any value to you. But I think, like I said, most people they're too lazy to actually, let me do my own research. Let me find out about this particular subject matter and see if I can dig a little bit more. Now, obviously, then you're still using the internet, but at least you are going to look for sources that hopefully you find credible, and then form an opinion based on what you find out, instead of having someone tell you what it's about, someone pushing it in your face, whether it's a news alert or, an alert on your cell phone, like, this is going on, this is happening. And this week alone, there were too many interviews with those that are in DC. They were talking in circles, not making sense, or still pushing an agenda. That's not leadership. It's just not leadership. So I think what's happening is people are they're tuned out. They're obviously pretty excited. We're down to, I think, 33 days, whatever it is, 32 days. And they just want, like, kind of the cycle over with. To get some resolve. And, all we can do is, at the end of the day, is do our part, make a difference in pieces that we actually do have control. You can control when you go out to vote. And, like everyone is saying, as far as what's going on in the bigger pieces of what's going on in the United States, go out and vote on election day to make sure that, you're not only your vote is counting, but different stats that I've learned say the least amount of shenanigans does not impact the vote on the date of election in person. It has more to do with ballots that are being received. I do know, I actually talked to quite a few people in many different states where they are allowing that, and they're telling me they're receiving 2, 3, 4 ballots already. So what does that tell you? And you could say, "Ooh, it was an error," but then when you look and you say, "Ooh, it's only happened in a certain political state. How is it? And could all these states be having issues?" So, I mean, people aren't stupid. And I think part of, the big G out there, they think that, human beings are dumb, and they're right to a certain extent. You're dumb if you're just sitting on the couch being infiltrated, your brain cells and your mindset being infiltrated by opinionated news. So in some regards, they are correct.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that. And I think, as much as I say, I would like to have a very, a discussion with somebody that has opposing viewpoints, I don't ever see that happening, because I've always asked. And when I have asked, I get, I'm a racist, I'm this, I'm that. Well, you don't even know me. So how would you even, like, I could just go down a rabbit hole with that. I'll just leave it at that. And Like,
Well,
tell
one
me
mindset. So what we want to say to you and what we want to encourage to all of our viewers and listeners is to just, take guard of your mind, your mindset, guard it. Just like we guard our hearts. Hopefully we're guarding our guts with some good, healthy gut foods and nutrition, guarding our bodies with good, fitness and activity and movement. But you got to guard your mind. You got to guard your mindset. That is a huge piece to the whole working mechanism that we call ourselves, our body, our being. And, take guard of it. Make sure that you are exposing your mindset to positive things that impact you in a positive way, that encourage you to be better, to do better, that encourages you to take charge of your health and your wellness. But you also got to remember your mindset's part of that piece. And I think sometimes we forget that. We forget, I'm doing, eating good and, really getting organized with my recipes, getting my fitness down, making sure I'm hydrating. But what are you doing, to really guard your mindset? And you have to do that. Those are things that are within your control. You can control sitting on the couch and being mesmerized or infiltrated through your mind from opinionated news. You can also take charge of your devices. You can, hit alerts off and choose which outlets or not that you don't want any information from. And when you're questioning things about maybe what conversation brings up, with your friends or your family, or something that you happen to see that comes over on your devices, do your own research, do your own due diligence to see, is this going to add value? Or, gee, yeah, you know what? I do want to know more about this, but I want to do my own research. That's how you guard your mindset. And, music, journaling, surrounding yourself with positive people, those will nourish your mindset. So while we want to nourish our guts, we want to nourish our bodies with fitness, and we want to really expose our heart to others, but we want to be also exposed to their heart. Got to guard that mindset.
Absolutely. And it's okay to guard your mindset, just saying. And on that note, we hope you have an amazing Mindset Monday. Keep it real with yourself. Do those things that you love to do, which will help keep your mindset in alignment. And every now and then we need a fine tuning, don't we?
Oh, yeah. All the time. It's like an ongoing thing.
It absolutely is, because you know what? We're all work in progresses. On that note, my name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, and I am with
TwoSistas, and this is Carol, so aka Gotta Get My Monday On, and we hope that you have an awesome day. We will see you tomorrow for Triumph Tuesday. So, here we're talking about our mindset. Part of that mindset means you might have to triumph over something, and we want to hear about it. We'll chat about that tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.